This incident happened 1 year before my 7th birthday while spending Christmas Eve with my family. Every year, I would help my mom make cookies for Santa and set them on a table near the Christmas tree. I always tried to stay awake as long as I could, but I usually couldn't make it past 11 o'clock. However, as I was about to turn 7 and feeling brave, I was determined to stay up and catch a glimpse of Santa. My mom, of course, never agreed with my plan. She would always insist that my brother and I go to bed on time. She would even check on us during the night. But this time, I kept my plans for the night a secret. When she came to check on me, I pretended to be fast asleep, and she probably thought I had grown out of it. I waited for another hour, and when I heard the clock strike 12, I cautiously opened my bedroom door and looked around to make sure my parents weren't nearby. Seeing no one, I quickly tiptoed downstairs. I hid behind the couch near the table with the glass of milk, keeping my eyes on the chimney as I eagerly awaited Santa's arrival. I started feeling tired and was almost ready to give up when I heard a noise. I trained my eyes on the chimney, my heart pounding in anticipation. To my surprise, a figure slithered out from its dark depths. At first, my young heart swelled with happiness, believing I had finally caught a glimpse of Santa Claus himself. But upon closer inspection, a chilling realization came over me. This figure stood tall, thin, and bore no resemblance to the jolly Santa with the big belly depicted in cartoons and storybooks. Even at 7 years old, I sensed something was wrong. I was filled with unease. The person walked towards the Christmas tree, and I still hoped against hope that it was Santa who was here to put presents under the tree. I couldn't see his face clearly, so I moved a little closer to get a better look. Unfortunately, I tripped and fell, catching his attention. The man turned his head and looked at me sharply. I quickly stood up, ready to run. To my surprise and fear, he was wearing a scary mask that would haunt me for years. We both froze for a moment. Then, he tilted his head and put his finger to where his lips would be, telling me to be quiet. I felt a chill run down my spine. I had a bad feeling, and sure enough, the next moment he picked up a poker from the fireplace and started coming towards me. I screamed and ran upstairs as fast as I could, waking up my parents on the way to my room. They rushed to my room and asked me what happened. I told them about what I'd seen. My dad grabbed his shotgun and went to look for the intruder. Upon reaching the living room, he found the window open, letting in cold gusts of wind. The person had escaped into the night. For the next few years, my parents told me that I'd been naughty, and that's why the bad Santa had come for me. I believed that for a long time until I realized it wasn't true. I still don't know who that person was or why they were near our Christmas tree. It remains a mystery that I can't solve, and I've hated chimneys ever since. It was the Christmas right after my daughter Sophie's 5th birthday. Christmases were always special to me because it meant I would get to see my daughter. Ever since my ex-wife Helen and I divorced, it was only during the holidays that we would get together, and for that reason I looked forward to them. I landed in New York and made my way to the house, carrying my things and the present for Sophie concealed in between them. As I entered their home, Sophie eagerly asked me if I had gotten her the doll she'd asked for. I had indeed gotten it, but I didn't reveal the surprise to her and just simply smiled. That evening, Sophie, Helen, her new boyfriend Greg, and I had our Christmas Eve dinner together. After dinner, Helen put Sophie to bed, and as I was tired from the journey, I retired to the guest bedroom. In the middle of the night, I woke up feeling very thirsty. As I made my way to the kitchen, I thought I saw a figure quickly ducking out of sight from the corner of my eye. When I turned around, there was no one there. Thinking it was just exhaustion playing tricks on my mind, I drank some water and went back to bed. The next morning, I woke up to the excited squeals of Sophie. Hurrying outside, I saw they had already started unwrapping the presents. Sophie hugged her mother and thanked her for the gift. She stubbornly insisted on opening my present next, and so she did. To my shock and surprise, it wasn't the pretty China doll that I had remembered wrapping. Instead, it was a bizarre-looking doll, the scariest and creepiest I'd ever seen. It looked like one of those voodoo dolls that you see in films. I couldn't understand how it had been switched. I looked at Helen, who appeared just as shocked as I was. But Sophie squealed with excitement, exclaiming, "A zombie doll! How cool!" Sophie began playing with the doll, but I couldn't shake off the strange feeling it gave me. I told Helen that it wasn't the present I had gotten for Sophie, but she didn't believe me. She said that Sophie had unwrapped it right in front of everyone's eyes, and indeed the wrapping paper hadn't been torn one bit. How had the doll been replaced? It was very strange, and the whole incident left me feeling deeply unsettled. Helen kept telling me that I should have picked an appropriate gift, despite my claims that I hadn't. For the rest of my stay, I shuddered whenever I saw Sophie playing with the doll. I knew there was some foul play at work here. I instructed Helen to throw the doll away because I was getting some eerie vibes from it. However, deep down, I knew she wouldn't do it. So before leaving for home the following week, I took matters into my own hands. I snuck into Sophie's room and took the doll. When I left for Houston, I discreetly threw it into a trash can at the airport. A few days later, Helen called me and told me that she had found an identical present hidden underneath the couch. It contained the China doll that I had gotten for Sophie. That left us wondering who in the world had sent the other doll. My daughter never found out what happened to the doll I had thrown away. But every Christmas, the memory of that bizarre incident haunts me. I sometimes wonder if someone had actually slipped inside the house, switched the present, and hid mine. But the more I think about it, the more puzzled I get. I had been very sleepy when it happened, but I have my doubts that the figure that I saw ducking was perhaps not my imagination after all. It was my first Christmas away from home in another city because of the COVID pandemic. My flight was grounded due to travel restrictions, so I had to stay put. It was the night of Christmas Eve. My house faced a local park, and looking out the window, I could see a light layer of snow covering the park across the street. Just as I was about to go into the kitchen and make myself a cup of hot cocoa, I heard the doorbell ring. I put on my mask and went to go see who it was. To my surprise, there was a group of children on my porch, all bundled up in winter clothes. They were singing Christmas carols with cheerful voices, which instantly lifted my spirits. But among the cheerful group, there was one boy who seemed different. He had a pale and ghostly look, standing slightly apart from the others. While they sang with enthusiasm, he seemed sad, as if he was at a funeral rather than a celebration. Wanting to contribute to their cause, I reached into my pocket and donated some money to their charity. As soon as the coins dropped into the collection box, the other children finished the carol and left, but the eerie boy remained standing there on my porch, stiff as a statue. He stared at me with a chilling intensity, giving me an uneasy feeling. Curiosity got the better of me, and I tried to talk to him. "Can I help you with something, young man?" I asked, feeling a bit uneasy. But he didn't respond. He continued to stare at me with an unsettling gaze. The silence between us grew uncomfortable, and I began to feel creeped out. Feeling unsettled, I decided to close the door and put the encounter out of my mind. That night, I fell asleep early due to feeling kinda sick. At around 3 a.m., I woke up suddenly, overcome with a sense of dread. As I turned to look at the wall, I froze in terror. There was a shadowy figure there. I quickly glanced at the window and was horrified to see the same pale boy, his face pressed against the glass, peering into my room. Fear gripped me, and I rushed to close the curtains, shielding myself from the chilling sight. Who was this boy? And why was he tormenting me? Questions raced through my mind as I listened intently. Outside, I heard the faint creaking of a swing, followed by the boy's eerie giggle. A child swinging in the middle of the night was far from normal, and the sound sent shivers down my spine. Gradually, the noises faded, and exhaustion overcame my fear. I fell back asleep, though my sleep was troubled by the events of the night. When morning came, I remembered the strange encounter and went outside to find the group of children singing carols at another house across the street. I approached them, ready to confront the creepy boy, but he was nowhere to be seen. I asked the children about him, but they had no idea who I was talking about. This was very strange, considering they had just been singing carols with him the previous night. They insisted that no such boy was a part of their group. Unable to let it go, I decided to visit the local orphanage to seek answers. I described the boy to the staff, but they seemed confused, assuring me that no child like that lived there. It was as if he had never existed. Relieved that I wouldn't have to face that haunting stare again, I left the orphanage, the boy still lingering in my mind. To this day, I wonder who he was and what his intentions were. Maybe it was just my imagination, but deep down, I fear that he was something much darker, something I may never fully understand.